All right, guys. So we are into the part of the tutorial course now where I'm going to be starting to create this future-based track from scratch. So again, this is all happening in real time. I know the playthrough was the first video, but I did that after all of these videos because that's the structure and format for a Sonic Academy How to Make course. So this is going to be a little bit different, obviously, than how to make, because I'm not just going to dive right into this is the sound that I used, this is the thought process behind it. You actually get to see this thought process. So every time I set out to create a new track, I mentioned this earlier in the tutorial course. I'm a little bit of like a method producer. I try to get in the head or mindset of the genre that I'm doing. That's why with the first two videos of this series, what we looked at just general future-based tracks. The DNA of future-based is what I think those videos are called. And then we looked at the chord structure and just the music theory behind future-based. So we looked at seventh chords, ninth chords, and I messed around with coming up with some progressions, albeit some basic ones. The reason I always do those two things when I'm setting out to create a new genre of music, or a genre of music that I'm not comfortable in, or maybe it's just a new genre of EDM that didn't exist a year or 2 years ago. So that was the case with how I treated Tropical House when that came about, and the same thing for Future Bass. Now that I have an idea of where I want to take a track potentially, I was going through some old recordings on my iPhone, hence why you see the Voice Memos app open on the screen right now. And I found one that I liked, so we are going to play this right now. We're going to play, and this is me singing, and I'm not a good singer, but I found this old piano progression that I did, I guess, in 2015 in October. But let's play it and listen to it real quick. The quality is not going to be great on it, just because it is coming from an iPhone voice memo, but let's check it out. All right, so you got to hear my my weird voice, and I will do that from time to time. I will sit down at a piano and I will just dink out like some chords and scat some melodies. I'm a terrible lyricist. I don't know why I just sounded like a Jewish mother on lyricist, but I'm not good at writing lyrics, so I typically stay the heck out of that. Unless an artist or a client needs help, I'll try to come in with a good idea. But yeah, I'll typically sometimes just scat melodies here and there, and it's hit or miss, and that's the hardest part, is knowing which one's good and which one's bad, because as producers, as DJs, as creative individuals, there's the propensity to always think and have the idea that anything you create is good. And I don't want to devalue anyone's creation or art, because beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and it's all subjective, and it's just opinions at the end of the day. But when you're trying to create an art that will appeal to the masses, it comes down to having good taste, and having good taste come into play when you create something can be a little bit of a pain in the ass, because you think like, oh, this is great. You get hyped up, you get amped up about it, you get pumped. So I just every time I start a new track, if I don't have something already in mind, I'll use a couple different methods or techniques to try to get the creative juices flowing, and one of them is going through my voice notes on my phone. Because sometimes I'll be playing, or I'll be making sounds, doing sound design stuff, and I'm like, oh wow, I really like this melody, I really like this chord. I record it, write a little note in the actual voice note, the voice memo. And that was one of them that I really liked. I think that could be a really cool future-based track. The tempo is going to have to be a little bit weird, because that one was slow, and I don't know if I want to do a future-based track that slow, but that, I think, is going to be the bare bones of this idea and this track. So let's get into the chord progression for that now, because the chords for that were F minor, E flat major, D flat major, A flat major, and then B minor. keep hitting that wonk note. So those are the chords that I kind of want to mess around with for this track. F minor to the E flat major, the D flat major, to the A flat major. So a lot of major chords. And then this B flat minor rather. So those are the chords that I'm really liking for this track, and I will bring up, we'll have the piano open, the piano while we do this so you guys can see what I'm doing here. And the reason why I like those chords is I just think that turnaround is interesting. I think it could work for a future bass style track. So again, with this F minor, let's make this a little bit larger. All right. So I just really like how these three chords are kind of descending, and it is very major oriented. Because the first one is minor, then major, 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 minor. I really like that turn. I like how it's 5 chords too. That'll allow me to do some really interesting switches in the whole future bass realm. So the next thing I need to be conscious of with this is, as I mentioned earlier in the tutorial course, we're going to get a singer on this track. And I've worked with a singer before. Her name is Luna Blake. You guys should check out her music. She is a really dope artist. I've worked with her a few times, and I know the keys that she is good at singing in. And I also know that I want a sub bass in this track. So I don't want to go into a key that finding a good sub sound or having a good low sub sound in is going to be a pain in the butt, because there are keys where sub frequencies just, you may have like 1 or 3 notes, maybe 4 notes where you can really move around on the sub frequencies. Other keys you have more notes. So I'm being conscious and conscientious of where I'm placing the key. This currently is an F, which is a good sub key, but when I go down to this C sharp, this D flat or C sharp, that on a C1 or D sharp 1 note, like on a sub bass, might be too low. So I'm going to check that out right now before I record any chords. So we're going to go to a new software instrument track, not a new audio track. That was just wrong. All right, so I'm going to load up a instance of Native Instruments Contact to look at my subs. And the reason why I'm looking at that is I'm going to go straight to my sub library, because that's what I'm comfortable using in the sub world, and I've used it on a ton of projects and songs. So we'll start there. And we're going to go straight to no kick track. So we have, let me turn this down. So there's F2. All right, now see, so that will still work. I'm not hating on that. So I even have some wiggle room to change the key a little bit. I know that from past experience with working with Luna, that she does really well in E. So I might change this to an E scale. Now, I'm going to be lazy, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not the greatest keyboard player ever. So I'm going to transpose on my MIDI controller and get it into a E scale, but I'll be able to play it in a scale or key that I'm comfortable playing in, which is usually F minor, G minor, sometimes A minor, if we're staying in an A minor key, or C. So I'm going to transpose this right now. All right, so I feel like playing the key of G minor, but I'm not going to be playing in the actual key of G minor. I want to be playing in E minor. So I've transposed my MIDI keyboard here down 3 steps. So 3 steps down from G would be, typically would be an E. So right now, if I'm playing, and I'm physically on my keyboard right now playing a G minor, you can see that I'm playing an E minor on the keyboard here because I have it transposed and it says E minor up here at the top of Logic. But I'm actually physically playing G minor. So that's something I wanted to touch on. There's a lot of, there's 2 sides to this whole argument, as there are with most arguments, but there's 2 groups of people who kind of, producers and DJs. Some of them say, doesn't matter how you produce, how you get the end result, just matters on the result. Then other people will say, purists will say, like, you need to be able to play your piano, know your scales, all that sort of stuff. I kind of fall in the middle of that. I don't really care the music that I listen to. I don't care how it was made. I don't care what software was used to create it. I don't really care much about the people who made it as long as I like the song. So do whatever works best for you. And I could have spent an extra 40 minutes learning how to play that progression in E minor. And I know ultimately I'm going to want to add 7th chords and 9th chords, potentially, or 11th and suspended chords, and do some weird inversions. And I'm not that comfortable in E minor. So instead of taking the extra 30 or 40 minutes to learn that scale and learn that key really well, because I want to make a track. I'm producing right now. My mindset is I want to create this track. Yes, I'm doing it on video and taking points and stopping at certain points to discuss the process. But what I'm doing is I want to produce. I don't want to have to spend a lot of time here. I can learn this key of E minor later when I'm just sitting down at a piano. I'm like, okay, let's improve upon my piano playing skills. But for right now, I just want to get to producing. So let's see. I know that the track that I recorded, that little scat at, was about 110. So I think 120 would still be a doable melody, and it would be an interesting tempo for future bass. So as I mentioned in the first couple videos, future bass has such a wide range of tempos that you can use for it. I think I'm going to be a little bit different and put this in an interesting tempo, just so it forces me to do, A, not copy other people's tracks that I'm using as a reference, and B, kind of find my own lane for future bass, because it is a future-oriented genre. So I'm going to turn a click on and see how this sounds at 120. All right, so I played a few different ways of syncopation rhythms there, just to kind of feel and get the feeling of this tempo, this BPM, and I like it. I think I could do a lot with it, so I'm going to roll with it. We're going to keep this track at 120 beats per minute. So thus far, I figured out a chord progression, and this chord progression will be the chord progression that I use in the drop. It could be the chord progression I use in the verse, but we're not sure. But I like this, or this will definitely be the breakdown chord progression, one of the two. So I have some idea of where I want to go, and that's always the hardest part for me, is figuring out what the hell I want to do and how I'm going to go about doing it. So this is a little bit easier. So in the next video, we're going to move to creating a little scratch track here, because I need to send a scratch track out to the vocalist so she can write to it and get the lyrics and scratch the vocals down. And then I can build the rest of the track up around it. So I'll see you guys there.
If you like this course, why not head over to sonicacademy.com, where we have hundreds of complete track builds in every genre imaginable, including all the project files and samples. You'll also find tutorials on plugins and synths, mixing and mastering, over 250 tech tips, artist interviews, along with our award-winning plugins, samples and preset packs.